Hi, I'm Josh Curving, and welcome to another Death Battle prediction video. But first, Jin versus Ryu. Finally, after a long time, basically since Season 1, Street Fighter has finally finished off its losing streak, the likes of which Death Battle will never, ever have again. So that's the thing. Overall, the episode was actually fantastic. They even addressed a lot of the things like, say, the meteor feat, him flying to space. It basically came down to a lot of the same things that I was arguing, in which Jin may be faster than Ryu, but he can't really do much to hurt him when he's in his stronger forms. I was extremely pleased with the episode. They even acknowledged Shinryu, which I was not expecting, to be entirely honest. They acknowledged it. They didn't really use it, though, and they didn't really talk about it. They kind of just had it as a sidebar note, which I'm fine with. Including it too heavily would start to kind of bring up questions. So it's understandable that they would kind of leave it a bit less. So, the animation. Honestly, I think this animation might be Torian's best work yet. The fight choreography in the first half, in particular, is actually my favorite part of the fight. The, martial arts choreography is so tight. It's just so good. And then when it is Devil Jin versus Evil Ryu, it's completely awesome. It's just a lot more, how do I word it? A lot more mystical, so it kind of loses the down-to-earth charm that it had in the martial arts section. And one nitpick, sure, is that the finisher was a bit unclear. When he does the Shinku Hidoken, when he's in Power of Nothingness, I was starting to get flashbacks to the really bad episode again. Especially when Ryu used almost the exact same line. I was like, okay, is Jin just gonna stand up and punk him? I was kind of nervous about that. So, I was very happy when Ryu was declared the victor. Yay! And then the next time hits. And it's Samurai Jack versus Afro Samurai. Okay, full disclosure. This is a fight that I ultimately did not want to happen, but I knew it was going to happen anyway. You might be asking yourself, well, why did you not want it to happen? It's because it's a stomp. To be entirely fair, though, it's less of a stomp than I used to think it was, but it's still a stomp in a pretty significant way. Okay, so let's go from the top here. Afro Samurai versus Samurai Jack. The strongest things that Afro Samurai has destroyed are small human-sized stone statues, a couple robots that he punches through. Nothing particularly impressive. There's the time where he punched someone through a stone wall. That's not gonna be enough. Let's just first talk about the gap here between strength and durability. Okay, Samurai Jack had a 700-ton, not 700-pound, 700-ton sumo wrestler jump up and land on him. Now, here's the thing, is that based on what we're told, we can actually infer that because of the fact that he is so heavy, despite not being as big as something should be weighing that weight, he's really dense. I actually did the math on it. Based on the size and comparing to Jack, Sumoto would weigh, have a higher density to his fat than osmium, which is the most dense material that human has. Not just more dense, about 7 times more dense. So to have that land on Jack is just absurd. That's a crazy feat. And even then, let's not ignore the fact that Samurai Jack survived atmospheric re-entry and crashing straight into the Earth. And then even if you want to start getting a far more direct comparison, let's look at the minions of Set. Now, I'm about to make some people salty because I'm about to claim that Afro Samurai would lose to one minion of Set. Just one of them would be more than enough to kick this guy's ass. Okay, so first we have a feat that the minions of Set pull off while fighting Jack is that at one point Jack dodges their attacks after blocking a ton of them, and the minion of Set cuts through what looks to be like about a 4 or 5 meter diameter pillar of stone. Already, we are significantly higher than any feat Afro Samurai has. And then, going one step beyond that, these guys with their swords just beat up on Jack. And when I say beat up, I don't mean they drop their swords and start beating the shit out of him with their hands. They're using their swords. It's cutting his clothing. It's not cutting him. So people who make the argument that Jack is just weak to swords based on the fact that he has sometimes been stabbed by things are lowballing, plain and simple. It is just a downplaying argument formed out of pure bias. Because otherwise we should just start bringing up Krillin gently threw a rock level Goku, falling apple level Kirby, Thanos got arrested by the cops, and like the dark side muggers. Like, you do not take a character at their lowest points, you take a character at their highest, because that's the point. You're trying to find their potential. That's the way Death Battle phrases it anyway. But ultimately, the maximums that Jack has shown, Afro can't hurt him. Not a chance. At all. So, let's bring up speed. There could be an interesting case here, because when I originally was thinking about this fight, like a couple years ago even, it was a stomp because I hadn't really, I didn't know necessarily about some of the Afro Samurai speed feats. A lot of the Samurai Jack higher speed feats, I think out of the 4 ones that are acknowledged as being relativistic or FTL, only one of them has actually been calculated, and that's the one where Jack actually like jumps out of the way of a beam of light. I think the calculation came out to being something around like 80% the speed of light, and his other feats might even be faster. That said, they haven't been calculated, and I actually am not able to calculate them, unfortunately. But Afro's speed feat, you might be thinking at this point that I'm about to mention how his best speed feat is far lower in comparison to Jack's. I'm actually not. Because as it turns out, the speed feat that Afro has, he blocks basically a beam of light, laser fired by a machine, and he does block it. I haven't had as close of a look at the feat as I would have liked, but based on what I can see, it might actually be accurate. And the feat actually came out to, I think, like 90% speed of light. So it's a touch higher. Afro is actually maybe a bit faster than Jack. Hey, that's kind of cool. Not going to help at all, because you can't hurt him. So ultimately, we have someone who might have a slight speed advantage unless they go and calculate one of the better speed feats against someone who can't even hurt him. So ultimately, it's no surprise who I'm going for here. Jack stomps in every way except for a tiny bit of speed. We want to talk about the other category besides like strength, speed, durability. Sure, let's go with it. We've got experience. Samurai Jack stomps effortlessly, even just the time between season 4 and 5. That's more experience than Afro Samurai's gotten in his entire life. And in Jack's case, he fought more variety of enemies over the course of just his show than anything that Afro had any chance of fighting. Partly comes down to the fact that Afro Samurai is a touch more realistically grounded. So basically the people that come after Afro, for the most part, outside of like I think 3 people, are like dude with sword. It doesn't leave much to the imagination there. Okay, but given experience goes to Jack, what about training? unfortunately, that goes to Jack in spades, too. Afro didn't even really complete his training. He killed Swordmaster before he even finished his training, and other than that, he hasn't been trained. That's his only training he had, is in that one type of combat. He is intuitive against a machine that had basically been programmed with all of his moves. He was intelligent enough and good enough to, on the fly, create several new moves. That's not going to help. Okay. Samurai Jack wandered the world in early Samurai Jack, like if this was in Season 1, before he got sent to the future. He trained all over the world. He trained in archery under Robin Hood. He trained with, I think, the Greeks in how to wrestle. He trained, like, Bojutsu in Africa. He learned, like, pole fighting in Africa. He just learned all these martial arts and combat styles from all around the world. And even then, he continued to bring out new things, like when he was fighting a master of stealth, ninjutsu. Jack just went, yep, I already know how this goes. I know how to do it. I know how to counter it. And he did the impossible and literally hid in sunlight. So that's a thing. He's capable of blind fighting. He can perceive things far better than Afro can. And even just from the preview that we already saw, when Afro flicks the cigarette into Jack's eyes, he can still fight blind. It's not a problem for him. And like, even beyond that, we just go into stamina. Jack has fought against people for days on end. And even just going into just who he's fought. Compare Aku, just him, against everyone that Afro Samurai has fought, and it's not a contest in any way, shape, or form. Look more into other people, like, say, the Daughters of Aku. They were extremely powerful, trained from basically birth to kick the hell out of Samurai Jack, and then they basically did so. And eventually he basically got over the fact that he needed to kill people and murdered the shit out of all of them but one. Let's keep in mind that one Daughter of Aku was more than capable of killing like a 10,000-man army while Jack was meditating to get his sword back. Speaking of swords, let's go into those. Afro Samurai's sword. It's a sword. It's his dad's sword. It's literally just a sword. Jack's sword. Made by 3 gods, blessed by them, capable of cutting through adamantium. I don't think they're going to scale him to marble. I hope they don't. Capable of cutting through adamantium, can shred through basically anything it cuts against, is pretty much indestructible. There's no contest there. Realistically speaking, at the first sword clash, Afro's sword should be in pieces. And if it comes down to it, Jack can even just pray to those gods and have the sword further empowered. And then let's go into the other thing with Jack's sword, is the whole cannot kill good people thing. That is a misconception. So first, we're going to go into the misconception of it. Second, we're going to prove that even if you accept the misconception, it's still wrong, and it still wouldn't count, rather. Okay, so the misconception is that it cannot be used on those who are good, which is false. People get this from the episode where he fought like a bunch of zombies or something like that, and then Aku got Jack's sword and tried to cut him with it, and it wouldn't cut him. What Jack actually says is that the sword would not cut those pure of heart when wielded by evil. That's all he said. So, already that completely nulls the argument that most people go with. But most people interpreted it as the sword would not cut good people. I'm sorry to tell people this, but Afro Samurai is not good people. He's kind of a dick. His entire story is just purely based around revenge. He never really does anything legitimately good. He might be the protagonist, but he's not a good guy. So even with the misconception in place, it wouldn't hold. And let's go with another misconception, is that the headband is actually going to do anything. It's kind of a point in the series that the headbands do nothing. The headbands don't actually do anything. It's just a thing that was there to kind of like give the world a system, more or less. It's shown to be bullshit when, in, for example, the movie, when two people who do not have the number 2 headband take the headband from Afro with no issues, and then someone who also doesn't have the headband later kills the number 1. So it's inconsistent, and it's proven it doesn't hold. So ultimately, Jack stomps. That's kind of what you can get from this. I just talked about, for 15 minutes, I just basically summed it up with Jack stomps. If you disagree, feel free to say so in the comments, but that's going to be a tall order arguing that one. I mean, even just, let's go with just a base strength feat of when Jack basically pushed over, like, a gigantic statue. And, yeah, it's like, I think it's some 200 times stronger than, like, the best Afro samurai feat. It's not a contest. Just Jack wins. Well, see you guys after the next one, because this one looks really good. The hand-drawn animation aspect is actually really spot on. I will see you guys then.